Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. And today, we're being joined by Christine Blosdale, author of your amazing Itty Bitty podcast book, The Top 15 Reasons Why You Need to Tap Into the Power and Profits of Podcasting. Christine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so very much, Paul. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we are thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
You got it.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Okay, I always take I take this question with great heart because number one, I want to inspire other people who are interested in writing to let it flow and go uninhibited on their first draft or first couple drafts. But what I think the most important piece of advice, because a lot of first-time authors think that they can take a transcript of themselves speaking and try and turn it into a copy for their book, and I want to encourage them not to do that. So, in other words, to write from your mind's reader voice and not from your actual voice, what some people tend to do.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think knowing which way to go is probably the hardest part, deciding between being self-published versus hybrid publishing versus traditional publishing houses, which can feel quite overwhelming. And the main thing is just getting started and actually getting to write that book. A lot of times, first-time authors, and this is the first book I've ever written, and I'm very grateful that it became a bestseller on Amazon, but it was a very daunting process before I actually got started. I thought it was going to be a lot harder than it was, and that's what kept me from writing for years and years and years. And then now that I did my research, I found a publishing house that I actually I adore, and I love the people that work there. So I picked an option that was best for me, and here we are. And I'm so happy because it finally got published. And like I said, I'm grateful that it's a bestseller.
Well, let's talk about marketing. Speaking of bestsellers, please share a marketing strategy that you have used in this book launch that has worked well.
I am actually a part of several Facebook groups that have quite active members that support each other in different endeavors. And I actually relied quite a bit on those Facebook groups to help me with the launch. I would lead up to the ebook launch, the Kindle version. I led up with that with a few newsletter reminders announcing that the book was going to be arriving soon, and then it was available for only 99 cents. And we know people love a bargain, so people would be jumping on to get the book at that 99-cent level because they love to get that bargain, but also because they love helping someone become a bestseller. And so if you can communicate what you need in a group setting, oftentimes that will help. And I did. I had a lot of people jumping on and purchasing it that day that I needed them to purchase it.
If you don't mind me asking, what type of Facebook groups were these?
There are one is the publishing company that I went through with your amazing Itty Bitty podcast book is the Itty Bitty Publishing Group. I went through them. I also have women in business Facebook groups that I have several that I am involved in, some here in Australia and also in the United States.
I appreciate you breaking that down because roughly 5 years ago, when I first got started in this industry of publishing my own books, before becoming a publisher, we were able to utilize all these different Facebook promo groups, and they were great for launches. I mean, there was like 100 different groups, and they were helpful. The free price point, the 99-cent price point. But of course, what happens? Things evolve, and within 2 years, that really wasn't an avenue. So when you mentioned about utilizing Facebook groups, I find it interesting that you have a publishing company that has a group, which is great, and then you also have a women in business group. And I think that's the main thing, is just finding the right Facebook group, not necessarily like an author group, but one of these as like women in business or publishing company, and then being able to utilize it from that point to support your launch, because I feel those areas are still relevant.
Well, and exactly. And the idea here too is also to be engaged and not just to go to those groups and ask when you need them. So like in one marketing group that I'm involved with, we support each other. So when someone has a new book, or they have a YouTube channel, or video, and they need to have subscribers, or they need to have likes, we will go and we will support that person throughout the year. And then when we have certain projects, we have certain things that we're doing, we can ask that group to, hey, check it out. Can you give me feedback on this? Can I send you a sample chapter, or would you be part of this beta test that I'm doing? They're really wonderful. But you do have to be involved. You can't just ask for favors and not give something to that group.
Exactly. The key word in there is engagement.
Yes, engagement.
Well, speaking of books, I'd like to know what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
I've been asked this question before, and my book is quite it's quite unusual, because I don't think anybody's ever heard of it. It's actually a spirituality book that I stumbled across, oh my goodness, like maybe 15, 20 years ago. And it's a book called Oneness by Rasha. And every time I open this particular book, I am given new insights into our connection to the divine. And it is absolutely a delicious read. I don't know why that one particular book stood out to me, other than the fact that when I open it, and I can open it at any time, I can open it and turn to a page, and it applies to something that I'm going through in my life, or that I'm experiencing. And I've never had a book do that until this particular one called Oneness. And it actually, when I was in a bookstore, when I first got it, it was on a shelf that was eye level. I think it was in a Barnes and Noble, walking around, and it was right at my eye level. And it was something about the title and the cover that just spoke to me. And I picked it up, and that's been my favorite book ever since.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
And I'm not even certain who this is attributed to, because there's been questions as to who actually said this. But my favorite quote is, "Absolute power corrupts absolutely." And the reason why is because it's true. It's quite true. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's something that I've seen in this world, and I try and change with my daily attitude and the way that I conduct myself in life.
Well, Christine, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show today. What is the best way for people to find you online?
The best way they can reach out to me is to go to christineblosdale.com, and they can also check out the book, the best-selling book, Your Amazing Itty Bitty Podcast Book. They can check that out at ittybittypodcastbook.com.
Christine, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.